Ryan grew up in a dusty little town where most people believed life had already been decided for them. His father worked at a repair shop, his mother stitched clothes for neighbors, and everyone around spoke the same quiet prophecy: don't expect too much, because disappointment hurts more than dreams. Ryan didn't question it for a long time. He assumed the limits around him were real, like walls that couldn't be moved. His world was only as big as the streets he walked every day, the tiny school he attended, and the handful of opportunities that seemed within reach. One afternoon, while cleaning the small storeroom behind his father's shop, he pulled out a crate filled with old radios, broken clocks, and a stack of magazines someone had thrown in years ago. Flipping through the yellowed pages, he saw pictures of skylines, inventions, and people who had built companies from nothing. He read about a boy who sold newspapers and later founded an empire, a girl who was told not to dream too loudly and eventually discovered a way to clean oceans. Ryan didn't finish the articles that day, but something in him shifted. He walked home with the odd feeling that maybe the walls he believed in weren't made of stone at all. That night, he sat on the terrace and stared up at the sky. It stretched so wide it made him feel strange, as if the earth beneath him had secretly been a balcony overlooking something far larger. He began asking himself a simple question: what if I tried to think bigger than this town, bigger than this life? He didn't tell anyone. People would laugh, he thought. But in his heart, he started believing that thinking small was like tying wings to your own ankles. The next morning didn't magically change anything. The road was the same, the dust blew the same way, the neighbors wore the same tired looks, but Ryan was different. Instead of saying, I can't, he began saying, what if? When his friends talked about finding any job that paid a little, he imagined creating jobs. When others said college was too expensive, he began searching for scholarships on old computers in the school library. Teachers noticed his questions started sounding different. They weren't about passing tests anymore, but about solving bigger problems and understanding how things were built. He didn't know how he would manage everything, but he knew his mind needed to live in a bigger world before his body ever could. He applied for a scholarship that no one from his school had ever attempted. The form asked about goals and passions. The old version of him would have written something safe and ordinary, but now he let himself think without shrinking. He wrote about creating technology that could help small towns like his connect with the world. He described how thousands of young people never discovered their potential because they were taught to think small. He promised to change that. Weeks passed in silence. His father teased him gently about expecting letters from places that didn't know his name. His mother smiled and rubbed his head when he looked worried. Though they didn't fully understand his dreams, they saw a sharper spark in his eyes and quietly rooted for him. One evening, a large envelope arrived. He stood frozen while his parents stared. Inside was a letter that began with the word congratulations. Ryan had earned a full scholarship to a university in the city. For the first time, his parents cried not from worry, but from pride and disbelief. The neighbors gathered around, some clapping, some shocked, some whispering that perhaps the boy had gone mad in a useful way. The city overwhelmed him at first. Towering buildings, fast trains, voices from everywhere, problems that seemed massive, and solutions that required imagination. But instead of being afraid, he grew excited. Every day he met people who also thought big, and instead of laughing at his ideas, they added to them. He joined projects that pushed him to see beyond convenience and comfort. Failure showed up often, but he realized each failure happened on a larger field than he once believed possible. Years later, he built a startup focused on bringing online education and job training to small and forgotten towns. He didn't want others to wait for chance discoveries in dusty storerooms. He partnered with organizations, taught students to dream and plan, and hired people who once believed their lives would never escape the narrow lanes they were born in. His work didn't go unnoticed. Awards came, news channels called, and investors offered support. But none of that mattered as much as the letters from students who said his story convinced them to believe in something bigger than their surroundings. One day he returned to his hometown. The same repair shop stood, though now with a fresh coat of paint. The school still looked modest, but now it had new computers and a room named after him. Children looked at him not with doubt but with wonder and curiosity. He held a small meeting in the school courtyard where he once sat bored and uncertain. Parents and teachers gathered around. No stage, no fancy microphone. Just a man who had dared to think bigger than anyone expected. He told them the biggest limitation he ever faced wasn't money, education, or geography. It was the belief that life had to be small. He said thinking big wasn't about arrogance or ignoring reality. It was about refusing to be caged by it. The mind is like a window. If you keep it small, the view never changes. When you widen it, the world stops being a rumor and becomes a possibility. As the sun dipped behind the roofs, people began to talk differently. Children started saying words like maybe and someday with new energy. Parents who once urged caution now whispered about ambition. Ryan didn't need everyone to follow his exact path. He just wanted them to understand that thinking big wasn't a luxury reserved for the lucky. It was the first step to uncovering everything that luck, hard work, and courage could build together. Ryan left again the next morning, this time not escaping a small world, but expanding it. And in countless places like his town, the power of thinking big had begun lighting sparks in minds that had finally learned to look past the walls and into the sky.